So let's see.
They're going to
Okay, guys, everybody, welcome to the very late start of the Salesforce Career Show. We just had a 20-minute practice round because I did a bonehead Josh Matthews thing and didn't click the second button that you have to hit to go live. So I apologize to all of you. You might have to listen to this on the podcast or on the stream on YouTube down the road or on our channel. So deep apologies if you hung out and you're still listening. Thank you so much. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and get cracking. Welcome to the Salesforce Career Show. I'm your host, Josh Matthews. With me is Vanessa Grant, and we have 4 incredible guests, including my friend, Tom Graber. Tom has been a recruiter for many, many years. We became friends and colleagues back in our Robert Half days in the early 2000s, and he used to be talent acquisition for Salesforce. We also have Brandon Stein. Welcome, Brandon. You guys know Brandon. He's been on a couple of our shows. We've got Reid Marquand, who's been a regular contributor over the past year, and we've got Josh LaQuire, one of the smartest people I know. So welcome everybody to the show. Today we are talking about what should you do if you want to quit. That's the deal. Should you stay or should you go? And there are a number of reasons why you should stay, a number of reasons why you should go. We're going to explore all of them. And more importantly, we're going to provide some guidelines to hopefully help you really make the best decision that you possibly can that's going to help you in the short term, near term, but is also career focused. And by that, I mean the long haul, right? Careers are a marathon. So do you need to bail out in the middle of this marathon for good? Go for it. It's called retirement. But if you're going to stay in the race, you've got to pace yourself and make some good decisions, including hydration and working for good companies. So we're going to help you with that. And with that, we'll just do a couple quick updates. One about our contest from last episode, about the Salesforce MVP program and what you can do to support your favorite Salesforce professional. And then we're going to go ahead and dive into all this quit talk. Okay, so Vanessa, can you share with everybody when the last date is for registering or recommending someone for the MVP recognition?
Yep. The last day that you can nominate a Salesforce MVP is February 7th. And you could always self-nominate yourself as well. So it's you could either nominate somebody else that you really admire in the community, somebody that you feel has contributed a lot, or if you're like, I need to get acknowledged because I do a lot, and you know, if you can't toot your own horn, then who can toot your horn? No,
I mean, you know, toot. Well, I think that's great. I've definitely got my recommendation has been submitted. I put out a post. I think we got 3 or 4 more folks who put in some submissions. Pretty pleased with sugar on top. Let's send a beautiful, lovely contributor to our show for many, many years. Vanessa Grant, next month is her last month as a regular contributor. We want to send her off with the best chance possible to receive an MVP award for all of her hard work over the many years that she's served on her own dime and on her own time, thousands and thousands of Salesforce people. So thank you, Vanessa. And if you would like to contact me, you can ping me on LinkedIn. It's just / Joshua Matthews with 2 T's. You can ping me and I will get you some information that makes it much easier for you to go ahead and make that submission happen. Next update is going to be around our contest, which we held with Mr. John Klein with People First Leadership. And John has filled up the queue with 12 winners, $28,000 worth of leadership and communication education. I actually took a look at the list and happened to know one of them. He's a great guy. I think he's going to get a ton out of it. And we'll probably do a little once a month update, maybe have John back on, or even some of these folks who are on his program who are going to get better at their communication, leadership, and therefore their careers. They are investing in their careers. And if you're listening to this show, that means that you're investing in your career too. And we appreciate you. By the way, if you happen to like this show, give us a thumbs up on your favorite platform. Comments always help too. And if you'd like to, actually apply to either be a co-host on this show or to be a guest, have a guest spot, you can visit salesforcecareershow.com. We'll describe our upcoming shows, and there are all these little forms that you can fill out for any of that stuff. Okay. At the end of the show, if there's time, or a little bit later on, I may share a couple little updates to one of our programs early in the year, which was all about efficiencies, time management, planning, and getting the most out of your 2025. So stay tuned and we'll cover that. But first, we're going to go ahead and cover some of the core reasons why people quit their job. We're just going to crank through this so that we can get to the good, meaty stuff. If you're listening and you've ever quit or you've been thinking about quitting, you already know what your reasons are. Here are the top 5 reasons. This has been vetted. I ran it through Perplexity AI. I double, triple checked. So this is pretty accurate. Number 1 reason, I can't grow here. Raise your hand on the show. Let's see. Anyone have to leave a job because they could no longer progress? And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so everyone but Vanessa has left a job because they couldn't grow anymore. How about this one? They don't pay me enough. Anyone ever leave because the compensation wasn't in line with what you felt you deserved? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then 5. Okay, 5. Another 5. This is hitting. How about I need a better work life? Brandon's raising his hand this time in our little practice session. He didn't raise his hand, so his arm's working again. So that's good to see. So I got another 5 on that. This one, which is a little bit controversial, is the environment is toxic. Mm-hmm. Yep. We've got a couple who've left there. 4 out of the 6 have left because of that. And the big one, leadership sucks. Yep. We got double hands. Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. 5. Okay. So we are all, I think, either very close to 40 or getting darn close to 40. So we've got about a 20-year range of people here on the live show. By the way, if you're listening to this podcast and you would like to see what we look like while we're chatting in all our 6 little boxes here, you are welcome to join us on either the YouTube channel or you can visit the recording on LinkedIn. Just connect with me and I'll share it with you, or you can just search for it and it will probably show up. So what I'd like to do now, folks, is just dive in to topic number 1, or the reason number 1, which is I can't grow here, right? I can't grow here. Let's start with Mr. Tom Graber. Tom, you're a recruiter. You've interviewed thousands of people. You've interviewed, I'm imagining, hundreds of Salesforce professionals in your career. You've been in tech. When I first interviewed you over 20 years ago, or about 20 years ago, you were an IT director at the time. So you've been involved in technology for many, many years. And I'm kind of curious, as a recruiter, where you stand, do you believe that I can't grow here is the number 1 reason that people cite for wanting to exit their role?
Yeah, and I think it has multiple dimensions. I think, when I've been tracking through various ATS systems that I've set up, becoming a talent leader, and the ability to learn and grow is always one of the top ones. It's up there with culture, with how the team's constructed, and that really is about communication and equity. They want to contribute to something bigger themselves. They believe in mentorship.
Okay.
And when you get down to it, because when you look at the competitive nature for something like software engineering, they're all relatively going to pay pretty well, but being acknowledged in the ability to learn and grow. I mean, look at the top engineers in the world for whatever company or consultants in that. They kind of wake up and live and breathe that ability to learn more, to not just from an added value, but it's just innate in them.
Absolutely. Those are good points.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You got something else to share? Go for it.
No, it's just really, I think it's the top people in their field always want to continually learning. It's not like they get to the point, totally. I know everything, I'm just going to write it out from here.
Yep. Mr. Stein, Mr. Brandon Stein, what can companies do to ensure that they're helping their employees to grow their career, grow their responsibilities and their revenue and lifestyle?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay, Josh?
We hear you just great, buddy.
Yeah, I think stretch assignments, right? You have to trust your employees implicitly and sort of trust until there's reasons not to trust them, right? And that comes from leadership, right? I think that leadership implicitly needs to provide that leash and runway. And it goes back to those points earlier, right? Giving those responsibilities and stretch roles, right? And fostering that growth and inspiration and stretch roles, right? And I think if people feel motivated and the right incentives and carrots are in place to allow people to spread their wings, it really starts from the top down, right? And people lead by example. And if they see leadership inspiring with those roles and those carrots and incentives, they'll spread their wings and follow leadership that creates that culture of trust, and then those opportunities to really stretch and grow.
I agree. Anyone else have some ideas and thoughts on what companies can do to keep people and really offer them a path of career development?
I think you can do this through your performance review cycles that you may have at a company, and do this in a way where you're recognizing and giving accolades for the work that was done, and just the simple act of recognition, whether it's, hey, good job, or look at all you did, just highlighting that gives people encouragement and validation to say, my work here has value and I did something. And then in the second part of that, you can also use that as an opportunity to say, well, you've been here for 3 months, 3 years, and we're seeing you do great work. What are your aspirations? Where do you want to grow? And directly, intently, proactively work with your colleague on your team to map that out and achieve that vision, and actually follow through on that, not just say it, but do it. So
the follow through is key, right? I mean, everybody, like so many companies have some sort of OD group or HR group that's around career development, but people can be very resistant to some of those programs. They can include, tuition reimbursement, certification reimbursement. You can ask to go to conferences to learn extra things, or maybe get a small, get some petty cash so that you can invest in an AI training course or something like that. But whose responsibility, Mr. Marquand, whose responsibility is their career growth? Is it their boss or their company, or is it them?
I think it's someone in HR. No, it's your own.
Right?
You have to. I've been thinking about a lot about your topic today, Josh, and what I would say, what I shouldn't say, sort of thing.
You can say whatever you want.
One of them was you really have to be the champion of your own career.
There you go.
I mean, the squeaky wheel, whatever you want to do. There's extremes to everything, right? But I think if you want to excel, then you're gonna have to look for those challenges. You're gonna have to step up. You're gonna have to offer something. One thing I was just thinking about from the last question was people can do brown bag lunches. They can cross train, other things like that. Whether it's necessary at the company for coverage or whatnot, but you can always offer something up. Say, hey, at 12:15 over lunch hour, I'm going to be showing a demo of what I built last week. Whoever wants to attend can attend, right? So I think some of those things really highlight the abilities within a company. But coming back to it, you really have to self-promote to a point.
Yes, self-promote, be proactive. And I'll tell you, like Tom and I, we were both, I don't think I had a promotion yet, but when he joined the team, so basically he joined Robert Half Technology in Portland. I was on the software side, he was on the tech and IT side, network systems, things like that. And we each had our own little team. But for us to get those promotions, do you remember what we did, Tom? We set up, some 8-week MBTI training for the entire office. We just joined at the hip. We put it together. We delivered it, and we started dressing sharper. We just started to act like we started to dress like we were in that role already. And then we started to assume responsibilities. We looked for, where is there an abdication of responsibility, right? I bang on about this every other episode, what Jordan Peterson says. If you want to grow, look for where responsibility has been abdicated, assume that responsibility, and then produce it, right? So I've got a few things here, just 3 basic points that you can do, okay? If you can't grow your career, before you quit your job, 1, have you had an honest conversation with your manager about your goals? Have you asked them? I would always go to your manager first, and then HR like kind of way down the road, right? That relation, once you start getting HR involved, it can put a little bit of a wedge between you and your manager. So if you have a decent, it doesn't have to be a great relationship, by the way. It doesn't even have to be close relationship, but you have to have a relationship, one where you can go in, you could talk to them and just share, hey, I've been I've been a consultant here for 2.5 years, and I'd like to talk about, I believe I'm ready to take on more responsibilities, more learning. My real goal, it took me a while to figure it out, is I want to be a solution architect. And I want to know if, one, I want you to know that that's what I want. I think it's important that you know that. And then I wanted to ask you, what will it take? What can I do here to give myself the best shot? And by the way, I'd love to be a solution architect here. And I know I'm not there yet. I'd love to do it here. Can you help me get there?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you just have to have an honest conversation. We kind of talked about number 2, which is just take on new projects. Reid, I think you brought this up, and I think it's great. Take on new projects, take on challenges to prove that you're ready for more. If you're on a team, let's say there's 5 people on your team and 5 people have the same job, and you're not the one doing more, you're either more efficient, you produce more, you solve more complex problems, you're the go-to for the client communications, you're the person that they're tapping. Hey, can you check this email before I send it? Hey, can you sit in on this discovery call with me? If people aren't doing that already, the chances of getting a promotion aren't going to be extremely high unless you're in a very siloed tech world and whoever's the decision maker is seeing it. But if you're on a team, you've got to be better than the rest of the team. Or you're not the obvious choice, right? And then the last one is, have you taken advantage of every available tool, mentorship programs, certifications, tuition reimbursement? Have you demonstrated a willingness to invest unpaid time to get better at your job so that you can be worth more for your time? It's really straightforward. And if the answer is no to any of these, we can't put the pressure on the company. We've got to own it. Growth starts with you, right? Take control. And by the way, if you're going to not fix this at this company, you're going to drag those problems into the next company. You know, I've got a candidate right now. He's got a job offer through me, through my client. He wants a leadership role. He has exhibited leadership qualities. By the way, he's a great guy. I think he's fantastic. Okay. We're going to offer him a little bit more money, and we're going to offer him investment in his ability to become a leader. There's no guarantee. He has to prove it. People have to start reaching out to him. If they're not doing that in 6 months, he might be stuck as a senior consultant instead of a, lead or senior manager or junior solution architect or what have you. So he's willing to take that risk to leave a company because he knows that he's going to be invested in. Now, he hasn't accepted the offer yet. Jury's out. So we'll find out hopefully tonight. Maybe he's even watching the show. I don't know. But we'll find out soon enough. But that's the kind of situation. He can stay. He's been given kind of a promise. Hey, down the road, we're going to make you a leader. But nothing's in writing, versus another company that's going to be like, yes, we'll invest in you, but you still have to do a great job or you don't get the job. Fair enough. Yeah. Any stories, guys? Any experiences?
I was gonna say a couple things. One, I think, yes, the whole find places where responsibility has been abdicated. That's great and all, but I think what I encourage folks that I do mentorship for is know where you're going. At least have your northern light kind of thing, because yes, opportunities are going to present themselves all the time, particularly if you're like, I want opportunities. People, well, okay, you want some opportunities? Here's an opportunity to do this. Here's an opportunity to do that. But I think there's something different between proactively guiding your career versus just taking opportunities as they come and kind of letting other folks maybe push you in other directions toward your career. So that's one thing. And as far as stories go, I'll throw a couple real quick. And that's where, I think, yes, I've done a lot to, say, yes, I will take on all these responsibilities and these are the things that I want to do and goals and all that other stuff. But I think there's also a place for managers that if they want to encourage the growth of their folks and also keep their folks. I had my first boss, really, I stayed at this company for like 17 years. My I was started as an intern, and when I left 17 years later as the VP of Business Ops. But it was from the time I was early in that career that my boss, she for some reason she saw me in a way that people, I guess she saw a lot in me. And I remember she said during one of our reviews that she really saw me on a path to being a COO. And so she started getting me involved in the finances of the company in my mid-20s. And that got me on the path to being the VP I was before I even turned 30. And then I also, later on in my career, when I was contracting, I actually had somebody drop the $5,000 so I could go to Trailhead Academy and get my admin certification in a week. And I'd been doing Salesforce for close to a decade at that point, but somebody actually investing in me because they saw what I could accomplish or just a little bit more technical was a big boon.
That's great. That's really good stuff, Vanessa. And we're all glad that someone believed in you and pushed you into that get certified in 1 week thing. That's awesome. That's awesome and hard to do. Josh LaQuire knows all about that. Go ahead, Reid.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think one thing people may look at like, oh, I can't drop everything and get a certification in 1 week and all that stuff. You don't always have to do the biggest bang possible. Sometimes it's just facilitating conversations like you do here, Josh. You're not providing the entirety of the show. You're bringing together a cast of characters and trying to help people with their Salesforce careers. So sometimes the biggest initiative you can take is just trying to facilitate and make something happen, not necessarily, oh, I got to go build this great demo that I have no idea how to build.
Yeah, bud.
I'm a big believer in creating centers of excellence, and most of those start pretty small. They're not so excellent at the beginning.
Yeah,
so
right.
anything you do to gather intelligence and help your fellow workers or your clients or what have you, I think that's a great place to start. You don't have to go with the biggest thing ever, because some people can't eat the elephant, if you will. They got to imagine it in smaller bites.
You know what? I love that. It's so true. I mean, look, when I think about good leaders, what do? They elevate people with them. A great leader is like high tide, and it lifts all boats. And if you want to grow into a leadership role or just grow your career, well, you can do a couple things. One, you can attach yourself to great leadership. And so where you are, you might be having behavior of being maybe you're a consultant and you're reporting to a solution architect or working side by side, and that individual is not exhibiting the best practices or best qualities of a solution architect, you should definitely ask to work with someone else or leave the company, because you'll just develop the bad habits yourself. And if you can be in a position as a consultant to maybe help a junior admin or someone who's new, when you can demonstrate that you can help elevate someone else's career, knowledge, skill set, communication abilities, recognition. I mean, honest to God, guys, half of this stuff is just, hey, Josh LaQuire, congratulations on XYZ, right? And I just wanted to announce that to the whole company on Slack because you just crushed it. You can be the janitor, and I don't know how many janitors are on Slack, but in this case, the janitor's on Slack, and they're pushing out a message to the entire company about how awesome Josh LaQuire is, right? And that's fantastic. People see that. They know that you're going to be a force of positivity, encouragement. So it's really good stuff. We're going to jump into number two. Number two is they don't pay me enough. So you're underpaid. And I'm going to start this one off before we go round robin and just say, you're underpaid, prove it. Like, how do you know? Right? Was it water cooler talk? Did you get on salary.com and actually believe that stuff? Did you look at Mason Frank's salary guide and actually believe that stuff? Like, where are you getting your information from? How good was your prompt when you asked ChatGPT that barely accesses current data anyway? Like, did you go to Perplexity, right? Did you verify? Did you double check it? And by the way, did you evaluate yourself, right? You might be, let's say you're making $120,000 in your job, and you think that you're underpaid because your friend is making $135,000 for the same title at a different SI partner. Okay, here's a story. I've got another offer out today. That is for a company that specializes, it's a small SI. They have a very focused specialty, and they offer 35-hour work weeks. Guess what? whoever accepts that job, if our candidate accepts that job, he is taking a pay cut for this job because he's going to go from 55 hours of work for a little bit more to, I don't know what it is. I don't even want to share, but he's going to take a pay cut to take this solution architect gig. But, he's done at noon on Friday, and they don't take calls, and you don't work weekends. And at 5 o'clock, it's done. Everyone can wait, right? So we need to really draw in all the information. How do you know you're underpaid? Prove it. Prove it to yourself first, right? And here's another thing. A reason such as like, well, my kid's going to private school now, I need to make more money. Or, I'm taking up golf and that's $600 a month, or whatever it is. Like, these are not valid reasons. I'm sorry your car broke down, you need to buy one. You don't deserve a raise, right? That's not what it's based on. Brandon, what are some other things that people should probably consider before they quit because they're not getting paid enough? And there's a real obvious one here, but I'm kind of curious what you think off the top of your head.
I mean, those are all trade-offs, right, Josh, that are personal, right? You want to go to private school or make those personal decisions. Those are not your employer's problems, right? Those are your personal decisions. I mean, you can collect data, do benchmarks, talk to your friends, right? We all talk and have peers in industry. And there's no better evidence out there in the market than actually going to the market and assessing your value, right? And if you're interviewing and you're talking to Josh Matthews and other opportunities, and you're collecting data points and you have interviews and you have offers, like, there's no better evidence than an offer or two or three to come back with and say, okay, this is my market. This is what the market is saying I'm worth. Sometimes it's good to just have that validation in the market and sort of use that as a benchmark. I'm not saying you have to use that to go back to your employer and say, here's kind of where I know I'm at in the market, but it sometimes is good just to know deep down inside, like what you could go get in the market. Now, if you're at the point where you are thinking of leaving, or you have a competitive offer out in the market and your employer is calling your bluff and saying, hey, I don't think you're worth that, you can say, actually, I do have an offer for the same, for a manager title for 20 grand more. And here it is, here's the paper. Like, there's no better proof than something in writing. But before you get to that point, it is helpful sometimes just to kind of feel the market. And I had an early mentor in my career that told me it is very helpful every 2 to 3 years just to kind of assess the market and kind of see where you're at and just kind of understand the data every couple of years, just to kind of know where the market's at, just to kind of know where you stand.
That's right. And we've had a lot of fluctuations the last few years, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of good to calibrate and kind of know, right, if it is a good time to make a move or if it's not, right? Which, we've seen in the last year, right?
Agreed. Absolutely. Tom, what about, some of the basics, like, have you even asked for a raise before you decide to quit for more money?
Yeah.
You're on mute, buddy.
Yeah. And how do you even ask for a raise if...
Yeah, well, you listen to the podcast episode that tells you. We've got that.
Yeah. I think before we get there, yes, having an open conversation, I think this is with the quit or conquer thing. Hopefully you have a leader that is a good mentor to you as well and cares about your trajectory. That's one of the things that keeps people there the longest. And I agree with what Brandon was saying about checking the waters. I also think it's important to calibrate. So for the example of someone saying, hey, my 3 friends are Salesforce admins, and I know they got jobs at XYZ and PDQ companies, and they're making X. And they work for large enterprises with a very complicated deployment, with lots of moving parts, lots of integrations, and you're a company of 120 people that is using Salesforce to its best for what you're doing. And you may be the most knowledgeable person at your company for Salesforce at your company. However, your friends might work for companies of 20,000 people or larger, and they might have more complicated systems.
Yeah, they get higher bill rates. They make more money. And by the way, I mean, Brandon, you're a former Deloitte guy, right?
I am. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the Sunday to Thursday flight schedule that, you're going to be walking away from family. There are all these nuances around, well, what are their benefits? Like, you can look at the dollar. My base salary is this. Okay, but you get 20% bonus, they get up to 5% bonus, right?
Right.
Or you get 100% free healthcare. They're paying $6,000 a
Right.
year, right? You get tuition reimbursement. They get certification reimbursement. You can go get an MBA for half the price.
Yeah.
They're going to get $300 a couple times a year.
It's all trade-offs. I go back to that trade-offs
Right.
piece, right? People may look on the surface, hey, you make a lot of money, but I say, hey, like I'm working 80, 90 hours a week. That's a trade-off that eventually drove me out of the big four because I didn't want that lifestyle. But
Right.
people on the surface may say, hey, that's the compensation I want. So different times in your life where you may want that type of opportunity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Vanessa, let me just ask Vanessa something here. We're going to keep things moving fast here.
Yeah.
So Vanessa, talk to me about maybe your experience or some insight around like just the question, have you earned a raise? You want a raise, have you earned it? We kind of talked about this with career growth, but why would it be any different for this reason to leave as well?
Have you earned a raise? Well, I mean, I think, and certainly we've talked here about how it's important to track your accomplishments regularly and be able to quantify.
Mhm.
So I remember going to bat actually for my team, and I was trying to go to my boss and say, we need more budget so that I can pay my team members more. And a lot of that was, hey, I just pulled the numbers from Salesforce. This is how many of this thing that we processed in this year. And then the next year we've had a X percentage of this. And saying stuff like that does, along with all the additional responsibilities or whatever it might be to help build that case. But you have to be able to build the case. Of course, I would say just existing in your job is probably not the best route to get that significant raise.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about like, the whole one of the reasons that certainly I was compelled to leave once. I should have, but didn't. But now I'm much better about doing that. Is I remember I'd been at a company for so long that every time somebody new came in with at the same level that I was, they were making tens of thousands of dollars more than me because I'd
Right.
been at the company for so long. And
Right.
that's when I realized, oh, I've got to actually, if I don't say anything, I'm just going to get the 3% raise every year and go, yay. Didn't add up in the long run.
It's a real thing, guys. It often happens that the market will change. So you get high. So there's kind of there's a lot of forces at play. I'll just kind of share two of them. So the first one is you come in, you're new. We talked about this last fall. You come in, you're new, and 3-4 years later, they still look at you like, maybe you're 25 years old when you took a job. You've been with the company 3.5 years. You're going to grow a significant amount in your 20s, probably more so than in your 50s. It depends on, it's what you put into it. 20-somethings in their first jobs tend to put a lot into it, or else, whatever, they bail and do something else. But the ambitious ones will learn a lot. They're starting from no knowledge, and they're capturing tons of information quickly. So they're going to adapt very quickly, and they're going to grow. And then the managers look at them, they still see the little 25-year-old. They can still see him as new. And that's why there's a lot of movement in their 20s. It just happens because they need to grow, and they have a desire to grow. They want to grow fast. But the companies that hire them, that take a risk on these new folks, they might even invest in them, don't actually have the budget or don't have the vision to see that this person is now on the open market worth 120 grand instead of 60. The 3% raise isn't going to cut it. Thanks for the 10K bonus. I'm 50K behind. I'm 3.5 years doing this stuff. Okay. I did just graduate from Talent Stackers yesterday, guys. I'm crushing it. Right. And earn more money. I'd like to ask you, Josh, what about, what do you think around this whole underpaid thing? Yeah.
I think there are a lot of dynamics at play. I think it's a complex topic. It's not as simple or as obvious as it seems. I think, Josh, you led into the conversation talking about how do I measure against colleagues in the same role, in the same industry, even in the same workplace. And I think there's an element there, right? It's human psychology is, our pay is sort of a measure of our worth, right? And am I worth, I see my colleagues in these different areas. Am I worth the same? or not. I think another dynamic we've sort of touched on but haven't really called out directly is, for lack of better words, the hourly rate. I think, you can work a job for 130, 150 grand or whatever that amount is. But, if you're working 30, 40 hours a week, per hour, that should be a pretty reasonable rate. If you're working 50, 60 hours a week, you may actually be paid less per hour than some people working with half of your salary.
Totally.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
burnout, kind of comes with that too. When people are overworked and they feel like they're underpaid, they say, I'm out the door. There's nothing that's going to salvage that. I do think the other aspect you folks have brought up that's certainly true is, compensation comes in many forms. It comes in the number of hours per week. It comes in the benefits of 401k matching, of insurance and stuff that, small scale solopreneurs or small entrepreneurs can't get on their own. And I do think that when it comes down to it, you have to separate. You brought this up earlier, Brandon. Separate your personal finance decisions from your work pay. That's 100% true. Your employer is not responsible for your personal financial decisions. I think that's challenging for a lot of folks too. Admittedly, we'll say my son's 16 in 10th grade. He's taking a personal finance class, which I think is freaking amazing. I didn't have that growing up.
Nope.
I went to college. I got a credit card and I was like, free money. Not thinking I'd ever have to pay it back, and learned that lesson the hard way.
Bought a Rickenbacker. I had $900 credit card. I was like, okay, let's max this out. I went out, bought a really nice Rickenbacker guitar, and then took my two roommates. We were living on Haight Street in San Francisco. I was like, I'm taking you guys out for like salmon, which was like really fancy, like 1992 San Francisco. 19-year-old Josh, 20-year-old Josh with his new guitar, his credit card, taking his roommates out for dinner. And then that's it. I didn't pay on that thing for years. And it's totally like, I was just an idiot, like a moron.
Josh, I did the same thing. I bought a drum set.
Oh, there you go.
First credit card.
Yeah,
and,
man.
I'm thinking
right
that, yeah, there you go. My 5 roommates would very quickly be like, you're never playing those things again. So, I had to get rid of those very quickly after that. So that was, a foolish thing. But all this kind of comes together too. I think there's another point that's really interesting to call out: the market, right? Like, Josh, you remember a couple of years ago, you couldn't find Salesforce talent. I remember interviewing people for my company. I remember interviewing this kid who was freshly minted out of, Code Academy or something, demanding to get paid $250K. And I was like, dude, first off, good luck. I hope you get that wherever you go. Second off, when the economy turns, like, you have a target on your back. Like, you're gone first because you came in here entitled. Yeah.
Exactly.
So be careful with that. Like, economies go up and down. I think a lot of people in our business know today that it's much harder to get a good job and it's much harder to get that pay. So don't be an idiot. When you go into a workplace demanding.
Don't be an idiot by Josh LaQuire. I think that's exceptional advice. We'll wrap up with a couple more little quick things on this one, and then we'll jump into our next number, or top 5 reason. So we've covered, have you earned a raise? Here's an interesting one. It's kind of a weird one, right? But have you calculated the full cost of joining a new company? Taxes, commuting, daycare, pet sitters, these sorts of things. You might leave a 100K job for a 120K gig, but now you're commuting. Oh, and it's 45 minutes, and you drive, God forbid, a 1999 Land Rover, so you get 6 miles per gallon, right? And you need to dress sharp. Let's say it's a FinServ company, so they want you showing up in a suit. Now you've got dry cleaning, that adds to time. You've got the driving, that adds to time. Right, that's less time with your family. That's less time doing things that you want to do. It might be great for your career. It might be good for the money, or maybe you are used to, letting your aged, golden schnoodle, whatever it is, out the door to go, your little incontinent 9-pound dog out the door every hour. Well, that's not going to happen. Like, you got a backyard. Are you sure the falcons aren't going to come steal it? So you might need a pet sitter. You know what I mean? And you've got to take all of these other things into your head. You might join a company that's like, look, we're going to give you a really low base salary, but we're going to pay you all these massive bonuses based on utilization. And then you find out, oh, wow, I'm getting taxed like way more on that second half of my compensation
And Josh,
I
it's not just
noticed.
it's not just quantitative too. There's political capital and qualitative pieces. When I was at Deloitte for 8 years, all that political capital I was leaving behind, I hesitated to leave because it was relationships and political capital that I didn't want to leave. And I didn't know how to monetize that. I was like, there's a lot to those relationships that I felt like I was leaving. And there was value, right? That value was not something I could quantify to go leave for another job. So it's not just the dollars to the new job, but it is the qualitative pieces of making that transition too.
And now you know why Brandon Stein is on the show right now. I love your insights, man. There are always stuff that I would never even think of.
You got to think about that, right? Like the longer you're in a job, the harder it is for you to leave because of those intrinsic relationships and what that transition is going to look like, right?
Yeah.
It's harder to leave the clients. It's harder to leave working with Reid, working with Vanessa. If you're there for 6 months, it's a little easier, right? Because you don't have that embedded,
easier,
right?
Yeah.
If I'm there for 8 years, it's going to be harder for me to leave Josh, right? It's going to be
Absolutely.
the trip at the client NDAs, the non-competes, like that is a lot harder to unwind.
A lot harder to unwind. And there's the friendship thing too, right? I mean, and it's more important to be, in general, this isn't sexist, so everyone calm down, but in general, women will stay in a role longer, much more than men, if they feel that there is a social group for them in the workplace that's theirs. You know, if they've got friends there, they'll be way more comfortable and they'll stay a long time. Women stay in jobs a lot longer than men. Part of it has to do simply with, it's not really about ambition. What's the word? I'm sure it'll come to me. It's more about just this sort of like around drive and a willingness to propel yourself and like stand up for yourself and be the loud voice in the room and things like that. Men move around more than women do. Women, and again, this is a generalization based on fact. So, you know, don't get your panties in a bunch, but go for it.
Yeah, I mean,
now I got to edit that out.
I don't know if anybody else has been at a job as long as I have. You know, I started off saying my first job that I was paid for, I was there for 17 years. Granted, I made it from intern to VP, but it was hard for me to leave. And it wasn't, I don't even know that it was, yes, of course, it was a lot of the friends and a lot of the network that I had within that organization. And it was, you know, about 250 people at that company. But also I think when you're at a job for a really long time, you become so competent at doing that job. You know that job like the back of your hand.
Yeah.
And I think for a long time I had, I don't know if it's the imposter syndrome. It wasn't, I wouldn't call it imposter syndrome. It was a little bit different, where it's I didn't know that I would be able to do other jobs as well, because my skill set was so honed specifically for the work that I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. No, it's excellent points. I mean, I have never had a coworker before or since like I had in Tom Graber. So it's awesome that he's here. If you're watching the video, it looks like he's working out of a music store. It's not. It's his house. He just owns a lot of guitars. But like I haven't had a colleague like Tom Graber, you know, in well over a decade. I mean, I've had employees, which are fantastic. Like everyone knows Steven, Gregor, like fantastic. But that just general camaraderie, because we spent so much time and we went through some really hard stuff. We went through global financial crisis. We went through, leadership transitions. We went through software implementations and changes and cultural changes within, what is a Fortune 500 company. And we went through it together. And it felt great. I mean, we used to do all sorts of fun stuff, right? We used to drive around and we had a blog. We were trying to find the best Lebanese restaurant and the worst Chinese food in town. And we blogged about it early, and we did. We all found the worst Chinese food in town, and we almost all went to the hospital. So it's a very real thing, the social aspect. Let's jump into number 3, which is I need better work-life balance. I need better work-life balance. And I'm gonna launch this one a little bit with newsflash, it might not be the job. Yeah. I mean, how many people do you know? I mean, I can count people who are like highly organized. I'm talking about like friends of mine. Well, actually, all my friends are fairly organized. But if you look at a company, right? How many of those people in that company are actually highly organized, reliable, dependable, say they're going to do something, do it on time without much fuss, without many complaints. They're efficient, right? Well, they're going to take that skill set to their personal life too, right? It's like I've blocked out time to study AI over the next month, 20 hours. It's on my calendar. I've got time to get back into guitar. I mostly play piano and drums. I'm getting back into guitar. I've got 30 minutes of that scheduled 5 days a week. So if you can be scheduled and you can actually stick to it and you can socialize it in your family and all these things, great. But people can overcommit. Now, Vanessa, you've had experiences of challenges or difficulty saying no in the past, correct? Yeah.
Still a problem.
Still a problem. And so overcommitting might be the problem. It's got nothing to do with the company. They're just saying like, hey, could you do this? And you're telling them yes, and they believe you. So it's not your boss's fault that they ask you to do something extra, or it's, the saying, not knowing how to say no. It's a whole other topic.
Yeah,
I don't want to cover it too much.
I think it's a combination. I mean, it's also, I feel sometimes, having been in consulting for a number of years, it's almost like Groundhog Day, where it's you do get a lot of the we got to get 110% and do less with more, or do more with less kind of thing. Yeah. It's but certainly I'm also bad at setting boundaries, and I train them to take advantage of me. Like I have,
right.
This week I've slept like 6 hours in the last 2.5 days. Just because, well, we need this thing done. And instead of me pushing back and saying like, well, you can't have it because I don't have enough time to do it, I just go, okay, well, I guess I'm going to do it. And so that's on me.
Yes, that is on you. And there are companies that are going to be horrible for life balance. They just exist. Usually, going into it. And if you don't know going into it, you haven't done your investigation enough. Again, go to Salesforce Ben, look at the Salesforce Career Checklist penned by me a couple of years ago. It'll tell you exactly how to figure this stuff out, how to ask good questions during interviews. What am I going to find out 3 months from now that I'll wish I'd known now, right? You've got an offer on the way. Great. Your offer's in hand. Now you call them up and you say, by the way, how many hours a week does the average person work, right? It's not a first interview question, but you might want to investigate that before you sign on the line that is dotted. I strongly recommend that you investigate with more than just the person who's extending the offer to you, what it's actually like to work there. And you should try to get a good feel for how much pushback you can have. Now, if you're new in your career, you're much more likely to be a yes person. You're much more likely to say no, unless you're, one of those zombie people who just think everything should be handed to them. And if that's the case, good luck to you. You should just quit and go move back in your parents' basement. But if you're an ambitious person and you want to crush it, right, you should probably get good at time management, estimating how long things will take. You can do it in 2 weeks. You can just be like, stopwatch, great, I'm starting this task. Stop, record it, next. There's software for it. Right? I think it's called Time or Timer software, and it just tracks where you're spending all your time on all of your apps and everything. So there's software for that, guys. You can figure out where you're spending time and whether or not you're efficient or not. But blaming the company before you investigate it with yourself is potentially a mistake. And here's why we're talking about this. This is the whole reason for the show. What happens if you leave a job too early? What happens if you left meat on the bone, right? What if you leave a company because you've got a reason that hasn't been validated, and you're going to face that same challenge in the next company you go to? And you might think it's their fault again, when it's really yours because you haven't taken responsibility, pushed back, asked more questions, set expectations more fairly. You know what, Mr. and Mrs. Boss, I would absolutely love to do that. That's a fantastic idea. I think if we could get this to them by, 12 o'clock on Friday, I could see how everyone's going to be happy. Out of curiosity, how can I do that? How am I supposed to do that? This is some old Chris Voss stuff, right? Never split the difference. How can I do that? And the reason I ask is you've also given me this, and we're at the tail end of that, and we've got so-and-so is out. And so what I'm estimating is 20 hours of work in the next, what we've got is 12 actual work hours. I can work all night. I don't think you want that. I'm pretty sure my family doesn't want that. And I wonder if the client knew that that's what I had to do, if they would want to affect all of those people as well. We talked about this on the last show with John Klein, right? So getting really good at communicating what your needs are, setting boundaries, investigating the company beforehand. But if you leave a job too early, Tom Graber, what's the worst thing that you can see, obviously, from a resume? We all know what they are. They live down in Australia. They've got big, giant legs and funny little dog faces. What are those things that people do that's the biggest mistake that they could possibly do for their career? Tell me.
Are you talking about Jermaine Clement?
Oh, my God. How did you know? No.
Well,
I'm talking about kangaroos.
Yes.
Kangaroos are hoppers. They jump around from job to job. They never settle down. They can't spend 2 years in a single company, God forbid. They think that every time they take a job that they're leasing the job on a 1-year lease. And I don't know if anyone here has ever done a 1-year car lease. I haven't. Know why? Because it's stupid and extremely expensive. And so is staying in a full-time job for a year and then going into another full-time job for a year. It's a dumb move. And if I look at a resume and you're 42 years old and you've had 11 jobs in the last 9 years or 9 jobs in the last 11 years, it's not going to go good, buddy. I'm sorry. It's already a problem. So you can cover some of this stuff by writing the little word contract next to the job if it's the truth, because there's nothing wrong with 11 jobs in 9 years if they're all contracts. But don't expect to get hired for some long-term full-time thing. You should probably stick to contracting, So it's bad. And there are really smart, lovely, wonderful, sharp, interesting, capable people who have woken up just a little bit too late to that fact. And what they haven't done and what they need to do is some serious self-reflection to get a handle on why they leave. And generally why people leave is they have pressure. They feel a pressure. They feel pressure from a spouse. They feel pressure from a boss. They feel pressure from a client. And they feel pain. And that pain becomes persistent and pervasive, and it starts to hurt. And they start to wonder if they can ever even do it. And I'll tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a quit story. I was working at a restaurant in Park City, Utah. It was actually in Deer Valley, and I think it was springtime. It was a 5-star, 4-star restaurant, whatever. It was a fancy place. And I'd been a waiter for years. I worked in some really nice places. I got to serve, Robert Redford and Gabriel Byrne and some really famous people, which was kind of fun. And I got free dinner, and I was poor, so that was great. But I was in this one restaurant, and the place was empty. And I had one family, and I had the table was headed by a father. It was the father, his wife, 2 little girls. And he was being so mean and rude to me. And I was a pretty nice guy and a very experienced server at the time. And he kept just giving me evil eye and talking sharply and dressing me down. And those movies where some incredible scene unfolds and then it ends and it snaps back and and it's just the person's imagination? That literally happened to me. I walked over to him. I picked up these were not plastic pitchers. These were heavy leaded glass pitchers. And I walked over to him and I swung my arm and I smashed it across his head. And then I woke up and I'm standing right there holding the pitcher, looking at the table. And I took a breath. I turned around, I put it down. I walked into the kitchen. I took off my apron and I walked out. Because that environment, that kind of behavior that was happening, I don't know what the situation was. Maybe I'm sharing too much here, but it was too much. I had to go. There is nothing that would have kept me there because I felt it was dangerous for me to stay in that moment, in that job. Now I was a young kid. I was 20 years old or whatever, right? So don't judge me too harshly on a story like that. But we have our reasons. We quit because we're in pain, because it hurts, because it sucks. We got to get out of here. And we don't see any light. Where's the light? Well, the light is you. The light is you. You take a moment and you start investigating and asking good questions. Take some ownership and get a coach, get a psychologist, get some therapy, have a friend, get some support. Just get some support, guys. Coming to the show, you're going to get support, right? You can come on, you can ask some questions. We'll support you. So that's why we're talking about all this to begin with. So, better work-life balance. What are some reasons why someone might not, or why someone might feel burnt out that have nothing to do with the company that they're working for?
Well, I mean, some of the obvious ones is the commute, like you already mentioned.
Okay,
Josh.
commute. Yep. What else?
New baby.
New baby. Okay.
That's an odd one. I do want to kind of touch on what Reid just mentioned. A friend of mine, his brother is a high up executive at Amazon Web Services, making really good money. But for 2 years, since COVID, he's been working from home. And now Amazon, and I've heard this story multiple times from multiple people, is now saying, come back in the office. And
like the feds this week. Yep.
Yeah. And he's basically saying, I'm not doing it, and quit his job. I think in that case, it's not unreasonable, right? Like if you extend a benefit to an employee, then you rescind that benefit, then you're going to have some attrition.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's not the same job anymore, is it?
No.
Yeah, they're asking you to do. It's almost like you're not even quitting that job. It's almost like the employer quit on you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What else though? Right? Like Vanessa, you don't sleep enough. Like, are you burned out because you're not eating well, because you're not sleeping enough? I struggle off and on with my sleep. I think I figured it out like over the last month, and that's great. But sometimes I really struggle with it. That's not my employer's fault. That's my own chemistry or habits. What about exercise? Are you exercising? Well, I don't have work-life balance. I'd exercise if I had life balance. Well, you might have a clear head if you exercised and accomplish everything in 70% of the time because you can work quickly and you have the mental energy for it, right? So you've got to invest in these things. Any other reasons why someone might feel like they don't have work-life balance, but it's actually within their control?
I think a lot of it's self-inflicted, right? Vanessa was saying like you're a yes man or yes woman, and you overexert and overextend, and a lot of that's intrinsic. And so when people are stressed, Josh, a lot of that pressure is intrinsic. They do that to themselves. And so if you're not prioritizing your mental and physical health, I don't care if you're working a 30-hour week or an 80-hour week, you should schedule your workouts, your mental, your yoga, your nighttime reading, whatever it is you need for your mental and physical breaks. You schedule them like any other work meeting and make it a priority. And do not give yourself an excuse, right? Because it's really easy to just let that stuff slide, whether it's a 30-hour week or 80-hour week. And that way you're always prioritizing that stuff and not give yourself those types of outs, right? So
I love that. It's like don't cheat yourself out of health. Right? That's what it is.
Yeah, it is. I want to throw something in here that we've kind of talked around, but we haven't actually hit. Sometimes people in this, I'm 44 and learning this about myself.
You look 36.
Don't know what they
buddy.
want. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Sometimes people don't know what they want and who they are. And they take on a job thinking it's what they should be or something they want to be. And there's this internal struggle of me trying to be this thing I think I'm supposed to be, but it's not me, and not being aware of that, right? Like this causes great inner turmoil. And I think that's something that's really difficult to put your thumb on. I think a lot of people, that's why they change careers. And Josh, we talked in one of our last shows, I think maybe the last one I was on with you, some of the most interesting people I've ever met are those into a second career, who actually kind of figured out my first career didn't fit and I tried something new and made it.
Mm-hmm. That happened with me. My server career, waiting tables didn't work out for me, so I'm a headhunter.
Exactly, but I think it takes a lot of self-awareness as to like what really animates you and drives you. Are you taking on a job or a career that fits, or doesn't fit?
Yeah, it's where are you aiming, guys? We do talk about this on the show a fair amount, but it stands to reason to bring it up all the time. Where do you want to go? And now, why do you want to go there? And now, how are you going to get there? And by the way, who's going to help you? And what are you willing to give up to get that? You don't get that without the give up, right? I mean, I want to learn AI like crazy over the next month. Guess what I'm giving up? Well, I'm going to give up probably 20 hours of television because I like TV. I really do. People never say, I love TV. I love TV. I love TV. I don't like commercials. I love good television. I'm talking like platform shows, Netflix shows, and things like that. I love it. Get sucked in. It's my relaxed time. But I'm going to give up some of that so I can invest in myself. And
Josh, can I share a story? Just
Please do.
quick. So I called Josh a week or two ago as a confidant, as a friend, and as a colleague. And I said, what makes people go out on their own and start their own business, right? And it goes back, Reid, to something you said in the first 10 minutes, is nobody is going to care about your career more than you. And once you realize that no company, no title, no job, to Josh's point, is going to define you, once you've realized that and you've come to grips that no one else and no other entity, no other company can define you, but you can control and you can care about yourself. That, I think, ultimately is what drives people to go start their own business or become an entrepreneur or go set up a single shingle or go, become a solopreneur, right? Whatever it is. And so Josh and I had that conversation a few weeks ago, kind of confidentially, but that piece, sometimes it takes some people realize it in their 30s, 40s, 50s. It just depends at what life stage you're in. But it goes back to no HR department, no boss, no one, not even your spouse, your parents, is going to care more about your career than you are, because you're the only one that has the agency and the power that can make those decisions and care about it. So,
amen to that, man. Yeah, like, don't be a victim, right? And the trick there is really simple. You just pause and say, okay, I feel like a victim. That's okay. You can accept that. It's okay to feel like a victim. The trick is to not behave like one, right? Because the sooner you stop behaving like a victim, you can feel like it. The sooner you stop behaving like a victim, the more control you're going to get over the challenges that you're facing. And you can actually do something about it. And by the way, it's going to mean doing things differently. And that might feel uncomfortable. That might not feel nice. I still have a challenge with interrupting people lifelong. I mean, I was notorious in the day. I'm getting better at it. What's that, bud?
Is the day today, or some other day?
No, man. And I'm talking mostly in my personal life. I interrupt people when I'm interviewing them because I need them to stop talking and I've got a lot to get through, or their answers are too long, or I'm bored. I think
it's also because you're excited. You want to add to that conversation.
Well, it is, but generally, if I interrupt, it's just going to be because I need to know more information. I'm going to interrupt. Great, I get that. Let me ask you this, and now I'm back to listening mode. It's not because I need to tell someone my thing. That's what this show is for. Haven't you noticed? It's really about like getting more information out of them in an interview. But sometimes that crosses over to personal life. Now I am so much better, and I'm paying attention to it all the time. It still physically hurts. It's a physical pain. It's not like a thought. It's a physical chemical in my chest. Like, I need to move on. I need to go do this. I want to do whatever it is. So I'm getting better at that. You just get comfortable with the pain, and then the pain goes away, and it gets softer and softer and softer. It's okay. It's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with working on yourself. I'm 52. I'm still working on myself. It's nothing wrong with that. It's good. And it's okay to own your faults, right? I'm imperfect. Everyone on this room is imperfect, but you are all absolutely exceptional people. You really are. Let's keep moving. We've got 2 more to get through. And I know we started this show a little bit late. My bad. But let's dive into this one. This is an interesting one. It's a toxic environment. It's a toxic environment. I'm going to go to you, Reid, in just one moment. But before we go to you, toxic gets thrown around so much that it's subjective. Okay. It's just been thrown around too much. And we all know who has been throwing it around. I think they all live in Portland or something. But we all know that it's been thrown around way, way, way too much. Doesn't mean it's not real. There are real situations. So I would like to define, basically you need to define what toxic means to you. Okay. But let's kind of cough up some of the reasons that we think might be examples of toxic environments. Go ahead, Reid.
So I pulled this up. I wanted to find the quintessential example of it, so I'll read this to you verbatim.
Thanks.
Nothing will destroy a great employee's morale and inspiration faster than watching their employer tolerate and reward a bad one. And I think a lot of times people hear toxic environment or whatever, and they think bad boss. It's not necessarily that there's always a bad boss. It's maybe that there's a distracted boss, or I think Vanessa, in our first 20 minutes that might have been on broadcast, you were mentioning a situation where your management was aware of someone who was not quite cutting and it was dragging a team down, and they hope that they leave or whatnot. So I think there's all sorts of things that could be toxic. As you said, Josh, I think it's thrown around too much these days, that irrelevancy, but that's one of my definitions of what a toxic environment is seeing a place that continuously lets someone who is the demoralizer, the late one, the never gets their work done, always rides on others, everyone else is the hero to save them. I think those are the places that I consider that sort of toxic environment. I'll let others weigh in here now.
Thanks for sharing, Reid.
Yeah, I'll throw in the micromanagement. I mean, I think that's the quintessential toxic environment. And to finish that story, Reid, so they were trying to get rid of that person on the team. As opposed to just getting rid of them, they set up 6 hours of Zoom meetings a day that we all had to be mandatory on camera for. Full team meetings. And it was, everybody wanted to leave. Everybody wanted to leave at that point. And that's the kind of that quintessential toxic environment example for me. It was like,
okay,
if you don't trust us enough to not force us to like literally co-work on camera for 6 hours a day, like, ooh.
Yeah. But those decisions come from somewhere, right? Like they come from somewhere. There could be a number of people that are abusing remote work, and they have a fiduciary responsibility to their investors and to their clients to ensure that the work gets done. I hear what you're saying. I know that it feels toxic to you. It sounds like it felt toxic to a lot of people, but an argument could be made that it wasn't toxic. I'm just saying, I would debate this. I'm not saying that you're wrong, Vanessa, and I believe you. You tell me that it was a toxic environment. Trust me, I'm all in. I'm on Team Vanessa, and you know that. But we're talking to a lot of people and right now, hundreds of people are listening to this program, maybe not right in this moment, but they're going to be listening to it. And I want to make sure that they've got a real setup. Like, just because you're on meetings all day long, or because they want you on a bunch of team meetings on camera, that's not good for you. Some people don't care. I don't care. I'm on 6 hours of video calls every day. I don't care.
If it were meetings, it'd be different, Josh. No, literally, we were all working in silence, like on our own thing, and we just had to be on camera for 6 hours.
Oh yeah, that's kind of gross.
Yeah.
Yeah,
on that note,
that's a little weird.
I hate to do it, but I gotta run. I will say, I guess it's Salesforce related, and also Josh, since you're doing your AI journey.
Yeah, guys, this is not the end of the show. Vanessa's just gonna pop out. We're gonna cover the rest of the stuff.
Yeah,
here in just a second.
The virtual classes at Trailhead Academy are, for AI. They're available. I'm about to take my Get Started with Agentforce for $0. You get a nice little certificate at the end that you could throw up on LinkedIn. So if you want to use your hours someday to get started with Prompt Builder or Agentforce, or anybody out there, those classes are free until the end of the year, and they offer them multiple times. Throwing that out there. Thanks all.
Thank you, Vanessa. Yeah, and that's great. I mean, if there's free resources, you definitely want to do it. I'm not a fan of everyone throwing all their certifications up and all the chatter around that on LinkedIn. It's like, come on. Yeah. Just own it. And like, if you need that accolades from a bunch of strangers, you're going to get tons and tons and tons and tons of likes. You've shared no value other than a small accomplishment that you've made. So I'm not a fan of that. And if you're the person who does that, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, personally, not a big fan. But off you go, young lady. Good luck tonight. Okay. Toxic environment, guys. Here's something that I would ask people to consider. Is it bad communication? Right? Is it harassment? Are you getting bullied? Is it the whole company? Is it the entire leadership team, or is it just one boss? Tom and I had a toxic manager. You know who I'm talking about, Mr. Tom. I mean, he was toxic.
I was sitting in Park City enjoying a brunch with my daughters and wife, and a waiter trying to sell me his old Rickenbacker. came over with a very heavy glass and hit me upside the head. It kind of ruined my day. If you were paying attention the whole time.
Oh yeah, this is not a soundbite, but close enough.
In all seriousness, yes, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, and it does happen. I think one of the things is there was an article written about fire the jerk, and jerk wasn't the word, where sometimes in tech companies, people will come in and this guy will be an expert on something, and he has a very abrasive way of working. And the turnover was really high with him. Like, well, he's brilliant. Well, because that's who they knew. That was the devil they knew.
Yeah.
And if they started interviewing other people, they realize, hey, not everyone that has that role is a complete jerk. In fact, one of the concepts I was floating when we had to deal with this person, the word toxic came up a lot. And I said, what we need is a Pied Piper. They go, what's a Pied Piper? A Pied Piper is someone who's so well liked and respected that rather than losing all of our candidates to these interviews with this abrasive person, this guy has a lot of people that would love to work with them just from previous experience. And they're the kind of person that goes to a company and people follow them. And it's like you hear this about people like leaders go to a certain company, like a guy goes from Lamborghini to Ferrari and the whole team follows him over. And the same can be said in any sort of company. So I think identifying it as one, there's this exceptionalism people have to it. I think it was mentioned before. Reid, I think you said it. Wait, maybe it was I forget who said it. But sometimes it just is one person that's allowed to get away with it that really does it. And then everyone else, it kind of has a trickle-down effect on the way people go. And I think you have to inspect what you expect. You have to understand how people are talking to each other by auditing their meeting, sitting in on it, finding out what makes it tick.
Pay attention.
Now I think what a lot of companies have been doing, I've seen for the past 5 years, is 360-degree reviews that you pick out people that are your subordinates, that are your superiors, that have working relationships, that are in the location, whatever it is, and you get a view of the person, a 360-degree view, the pluses, the minuses, and that.
And ideally anonymously. Absolutely. Those 360s are really good. I think it's really important here, folks, like when you're thinking, and this is going to be a big one, it might frustrate some people, it might piss them off, I don't know, but I just want to say this, and Tommy's done this. If you've interviewed people where the last 3 jobs that they had were toxic, right? And I'm telling you, if your last 3 jobs were toxic, it's not them, it's you. For real, it's not them, it's you. Okay? Because they have a company, they make money, they hire people, and they're successful. And you're bouncing from job to job to job, complaining about every environment. And the common denominator is you. And I don't mean that in a crappy way. That's just knowledge. Okay? So and here's an example. I talked to a potential candidate the other day, and he said, for each of his last jobs, oh yeah, that place was toxic. Oh yeah, that place was toxic. Oh yeah, that place was toxic. And I just said, okay, man, talk to me about what's going on. I've seen this before. And I asked him, I said, do you happen to have, do you have a condition? You don't have to tell me because it's medical, but have you in your life ever experienced severe trauma? And he said, yes, my whole childhood. I said, okay, so you have PTSD or complex PTSD? And he said, yes, I have complex PTSD. I was like, okay. Now that's serious. That's a serious, serious condition. Okay. And it requires a lot of treatment and therapy. And whoever's making noise, if you could mute your mic, please, that would be helpful. So am I going to be like, hey, it's you, buddy. Yeah, it's your fault. No, it's not his fault. He didn't ask for what he experienced that then becomes expressed in his work life as an adult. It's not his fault. I ain't mad at him, right? But someone keeps making squeaky mouse
It's like
sounds.
an R2D2
Is that you,
sound.
Tom Graber? Is that you?
I don't know. It's
I don't know. I'm just going to mute everybody. So it's not his fault, and I'm not mad at him. You know, I can't place him, but I was able to have a really open, vulnerable conversation with him about what he's doing to ensure that his next role is a successful one that allows him to hopefully succeed, because there's an opportunity out there for everyone. And I really do believe that. Well, everyone except for about 10% of the population, if you agree with some of the old French IQ studies back in the day. But for the most part, you know, there's an opportunity for people. So I can come off kind of brazen, but I really do mean that. There are people with very real mental health challenges that it's you know, it's not their fault. And then there are all the pretenders, the fakers. They're just short on patience, and they're just not good at communicating, and they're just impatient, or they're prima donnas, or they want everything handed to them. That's who I'm talking to. Don't throw around the word toxic, people, please. It's a very dangerous word. Someone calls you toxic, think about what that might feel like for you, right? And I would say, have you gone to this person and without using the word toxic, say, hey, some of the aspects of this company are causing me some discomfort. And I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I'm witnessing signs that possibly others are feeling this way too. And I want to help. I really, really want to help. Okay. So, can we talk about this? Can we talk? I can share a couple scenarios that I'm talking about, because I'd love to see a slight change in behavior. And I just think about Jan from The Office. Jan did this with Michael all the time in the office. You know, she tried to help him. She just like kind of blow it off and go to him and be like, hey man, you can't really act like that. You know? So I really like that. And it's a big word. Please be careful throwing it around. And before you call your workplace toxic, is it just your one bad boss? Tom and I had such a bad boss, and I'll just say I got him fired. And it's because I caught him in numerous lies. And Tom taught me something years ago. He said, information is power. Information withheld is twice as powerful. Now, I don't like to play politics. I'll play them if I have to, but I don't like to play it. I like to just go to work, get my stuff done, and have some fun, right? And this guy was such a nuisance. I mean, we had turnover in our teams. It was one new person every 6 weeks. Can you imagine that? A new person every 6 weeks, because they couldn't stand working there, or they weren't given the tools to succeed. He had to go. And finally, he said something, and I caught him in a lie, and an opportunity presented, like a real one that I could prove. And I brought it casually up to his boss's boss. And within a week, he resigned. You know, he quote unquote resigned. And guess what, Tom? Didn't life get a little bit better after that?
It was better. And I will say something as a caveat to that is, it's good to have checks that, you know, go out, lunch, drinks, or whatever, your coworkers, vent there. Maybe you're just having a bad week. But one thing that you have to remember is you don't know who other people know. And what I mean by that is if you say, oh gosh, this guy Sam, oh, he's so toxic, blah, 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 and you go into this person and they talk about him. They could be his next door neighbor. He could be his best friend from high school. Mm-hmm. He could have worked there's my camera. He could have worked with them at a previous company, and they still play golf every weekend. So when you say something like that, be aware of the context of what you're saying, because he said that toxic it's a very loaded word. It's over the past 5 years, it's become very heavy and weighted.
Yeah.
So if you say something like that, they're going to go, hey, guess what? Part 3, right? Hey, I was talking to Josh, and he was saying you were toxic, and he's been telling everyone at the office.
Yeah.
And so you can't, and in confidence go around kind of saying that. You have to
Just don't talk smack about people at work in general. Like keep it
Yeah.
to yourself and talk to your manager or address the issue directly with them. That's it.
And
That's
if
it.
you're
Get rid
if
of
you're
all
gonna
that behavior. Yeah.
And if you're going to go back to our office references, Chili's is the place where business happens. Chili's event, it's more efficient than going to McDonald's now.
That's right.
My plug for Chili's.
Guys, we're going to talk about the last one, which is the leadership is terrible. That's your reason for leaving. And I think that has been probably one of the most common ones that I've seen out of, I don't know, however many people I've talked to in the last 25 years. Brandon, look, most people know what makes a good leader, but the question I would ask people is, what's so bad about the leadership? Again, guys, there's a theme to this, right? Articulate the specific issue, research it, confront it, have options, and move forward one way or the other. But it's articulate what the real problem is. So what are some of the different, like, is someone lazy? Are they unethical? Are they emotionally checked out? Is it just not your style? Like Vanessa said earlier, like micromanagement is toxic. I completely 100% disagree with her. Micromanagement is a style of management for people who aren't familiar with doing lots of repetitive tasks and delivering results. If you're, let's say you're in sales, if your numbers are good, no one's going to micromanage you, period. Yeah. If you're not producing what you're asked to produce, you're going to get micromanaged. It's not toxic. It's just a style, right? So,
and it tends to, especially in like client service or professional services, it tends to type A delivery top tier professionals tend to be, control freaks, and they like to micromanage. They like to deliver and control, right? And they tend to sort of, they like to control their client delivery, and they tend to be kind of hard to work for, but they're good. They're good at what they do. And that's why they're hard to work for. They have high delivery standards, and that's kind of the consulting mindset. I'm a big Scott Galloway fan. He is a NYU professor. He's a marketing guru. He produces a podcast. He writes a lot of books. He says, he writes a lot about leadership, right? And he says greatness is in the agency of others, right? And I truly believe that. Instead of talking about what bad leaders do or what not to do, but greatness is in the agency of others. Good leaders, right, know how to promote others, know how to delegate, know how to give other responsibilities and grow other people. So you try to attract and surround yourself with other people that grow, that get promoted. And he's all about surrounding yourself with other great leaders. And how you do that is you see how they grow their careers, how they sponsor others, how they true leaders, they know to be better and to grow and to succeed and to scale their businesses and to grow their startups or to grow their consulting practices. They truly need to surround themselves with other great people. And they believe that greatness is in the agency of others. So they are going to allow other people to be great, which allows them to succeed. They get that, right? And so he's a big proponent of leadership and identifying other greatness and surrounding yourself with other people. I'm a big Scott Galloway fan. So instead of talking about like bad leaders and how to identify toxicity, let's talk about just turning that backwards and identifying like what good leadership looks like. So.
Yeah, I love that. Reid, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I've had lots of thoughts about certain things, and I don't know if it's all toxic, and I know that's not the theme of your show, but that's seeped in here, right? I do feel there's, nepotism, cronyism. You can kind of spot that easily sometimes, but to some of I think Tom's comments, you never know who knows whom and who talks to who and buddy. So there's something to minefield there.
Yeah.
I think some of that what I've seen are echo chambers. Some management structure has said something that sort of bounces around and becomes a truth, and you as maybe an outsider to that group, you say that's not right at all, or here's the latest technology or research or what have you. So it doesn't necessarily that all these bad leaderships are just bad guys. I think we kind of go in that direction a lot of the time. Sometimes it's that they're in over their head. Sometimes there you
go.
They got hired on and
I mean,
facing that title or whatever, I think Brandon or Josh said earlier, and they shouldn't be there. It's not that they're a bad person. This was not the right place for them.
Sure.
Sort of thing.
Right.
So, and I've been in places where I've not always done this, but I've gotten better at it over the years, is sometimes coaching up. And sometimes that is not the easiest thing to do. Manager doesn't want to hear how to do their job.
Right.
But if you can, you go to your Chili's or whatever and have those moments where it's less boss and employer and more just two guys out or two people out having a conversation, I think you can imply some things without being overtly, you're doing this wrong or what have you. So,
well, okay. I hear what you're saying. Sorry. Did I just interrupt you?
you did, but I think it's your show, Josh. So
Yeah, it is my show. I'm going to jump in. So I think you're right, but here's the problem. When I faced bad leaders, they're generally either incompetent or arrogant, right? And God forbid they're both. That's really tough. And you've got to figure out how to communicate to them, right? If you communicate to the incompetent, but maybe they're incompetent and sensitive, right? You don't want to break their spirit. So encouragement and, hey, what, that soft approach of like, hey, you know what? I just saw this really cool YouTube on how to get more out of your employees. And I watched it. And I was like, oh my gosh, Reid's going to love this. Mm-hmm. Can I send it to you? Would that be, and then maybe we can talk about it on a Monday meeting. What do you think? Like, you can do little things like that. That's the soft sell. With the arrogant folks, it often requires a demonstration of strength and resilience, but you have to appeal to the ego at the same time. But a lot of arrogant people will not, or people in leadership, they will see ass kissery from 10 miles away and they won't want it. They might kind of temporarily like it, but it's not authentic, right? Yeah. And there's a style of communicating with those folks where beating around the bush isn't going to get you anywhere, because they're just going to think like, that guy, I just had lunch with Reid and Reid implied I wasn't doing a good job. Screw Reid, right? Like, so you've got to be like, Reid, I wanted to talk to you about a specific, and you pick out a specific behavior, okay? And this is how you do it. You pick out the event, the specific event. You can allude to others, but you want to keep it really straightforward and small. And you say, when we were in that team meeting, I shared an idea and you kind of cut me, I don't know what was going on, but you didn't seem very open to that idea. And you shut me down, and you shut me down in front of the whole team. And frankly, I need you to know that when you did that, that embarrassed me. And that doesn't, by the way, that doesn't mean I don't have thick skin, but I like to call it like I see it. And I figured you'd want to know because you seem a direct person, and I thought I'd share that with you. Now you're sharing what they did, right? And what the impact was to you. You're not saying you did this and you made me feel bad and you blah, blah, and you embarrassed me. It's just like when you jumped in, it made me feel this way. That's a softer way of saying it, but you're being direct. And by the way, I don't like that. So I would ask, if there's a problem with one of my ideas, if you could maybe socialize with me in private, or on Slack or somewhere, not in front of my peers whose respect I have earned and want to keep. That would mean a lot to me. Do you see what I'm saying? It's direct and head on, but you're not using you and you and you. You see what I'm saying? So it's less painful for them. What do you guys think about that style of confrontation?
I think you have to put people, if you want to provide honest feedback and build stronger relationships, you have to deliver feedback in a way that somebody will receive. Yeah. And if you come out firing shots and are accusatory, you're going to turn off the other party and turn them away, and there's no conversation. It now becomes a battle where everybody is entrenched in their camp and builds stronger defenses and fights back. So sure. Feedback, two-way dialogue is, in my opinion, a hallmark of great leadership. Great leaders will ask for feedback and will say, "How can I do better?"
Absolutely.
And I think kind of flip the conversation. We did start with, and I do deeply appreciate the personal accountability side of this that you're highlighting, Josh. I think that's critical because that's a big piece of honestly being receptive to good leadership and actually identifying good leadership. But the flip side of that too is good leaders should really, a lot of people are thrown into leadership positions. You had identified micromanaging as a way to kind of get people to perform and deliver results as a style of management. Yeah, that's definitely true. Micromanagement is also people getting thrown into leadership positions early in their career, not having a lot of leadership experience.
Yeah.
Um,
It's the
and the
go-to,
reality
isn't
is,
it? Step one,
yeah,
you're in manager. Congratulations. Module 1 is your introduction to micromanagement
yeah. So
and bossiness.
we encounter this all right. So you, as a good, kind of team member, have to recognize, yeah, and in some cases, have a little bit thicker skin or a little bit more kind of fault tolerance. And you have to look at, there's one of the things you brought up earlier in our conversation, Josh, having a longer term lens and not leaving a job prematurely. Large organizations, leadership turnover is quite frequent. It could be every 6 months, every year. So if you don't like it, just, hang on for a little bit. You might.
Right. Oh man, that's so true. Did you find that to be the case for you, Brandon?
Just in prior roles?
Yeah, and probably at Deloitte, did you have a new manager every 6 months, or was it pretty stable when you were there?
No, I mean, it's pretty chaotic, right? Salesforce is the same way, and Deloitte too, right? It's like a war of attrition. If you just kind of hang on and you hang around long enough,
okay,
you'll get promoted, right?
So it's like the weather in Portland. Wait 5 minutes, it'll change, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we're at a point where we can summarize this for folks, and then maybe share some last minute stories and talk about what's coming down the pike. The bottom line is, you've got to protect your career. No one's going to do it for you as well as you can. And protecting your career is thinking, even as a 25-year-old, what kind of opportunities do you want available for you when you're 40? What can you do? There's a great book I've got on this little bookshelf right back here, and it's called Recruit Rock Stars. It's by Jeff Hyman. And one of the things I really liked, he's like, we don't even talk to candidates about jobs they've had if they haven't been in that job for 2 years. Because what do they know? If you haven't gone through 2 seasons, how are you, what do you really know? And I can think about what I know about the jobs that I stayed at for less than a year is that I didn't like them. And that's why I'm not there. Right. And what I know about the jobs that I stayed at for 2 years or more is I liked them a lot. They weren't perfect, but I liked them a lot. I had a president I reported to in a large organization, and she was great. And she told me, she said, Josh, I think about quitting every 3 months, but I don't, because the other 89 days are pretty good. It's going to happen. Folks, you're going to want to quit. We talk about this on the show all the time. We talk about it when a candidate comes to me, and maybe an internal candidate, when they want to work for me, and I say it's going to be really challenging, and they go, yeah, I'm up for a challenge. And I go, no. I don't know if you are, because a challenge means you're going to want to quit, and then you don't. And you want to know why some people have these long storied careers at a company? It's because they didn't quit. It's like trying to grow a beard. Just don't shave. Mm-hmm. It's harder than you think. I don't like how it grows in, or my face feels itchy, or whatever. But it's no different. So you want a challenge? Stay in your job for 2 years before you even start thinking about moving. Do everything you can to demonstrate your value to your employer and to your clients and to your team members, right? Communicate with the right people. Reflect on your role in any issues. And I think everybody in this room has done a very good job in their careers, because you've all had wonderful careers. And how can you not, when you're not like, gosh, you know what? Maybe I should read a book and get better at this, or maybe I should take a course and get better at that, or maybe I should stop interrupting people, or stop hitting people in the head with water pitchers. Whatever it happens to be, that you can work on. Maybe I could assume more responsibility. Maybe I could teach these other people. Who could I elevate today? Whose day could I make? How could I make my boss's job easier? How could I communicate my value to him on a weekly or monthly basis so that I'm the obvious contender for the next promotion or the next raise? These are all within your control. I really believe it. I don't believe in fate. I believe that we all have talents that we're born with. I am not one of these. I am a nature over nurture guy, in case that's not apparent. By the way, science is on my side here. You come out how you are, and you're given this bandwidth of happiness, a bandwidth of sadness, whatever potential mental things that could happen just chemically with you. Like, you come out like that. And then you enter the world and you learn. And wherever you are in life, if you're listening to this show, you're already a step ahead of the game, because you're listening to a show that is designed, hopefully, to help your career. Congratulations. You're already winning and doing the right thing. Keep it up. And if you like the show, give us a thumbs up and subscribe. But for real, like, you're already doing the right stuff. So why would you not take that knowledge and bring it to the workplace? In other words, it's just like, what's the glass house? What's your stuff? Figure that out, and then investigate, and then socialize it, and address things in as direct a way as you can. I'd love to get some final thoughts. And by the way, we will be back in 2 weeks live. This time we're going to start on time. I apologize for the 20-minute delay on the live show. I hope we haven't lost some listeners permanently. Let's go some last words of wisdom. We'll start with Mr. Reid. What are some final words of wisdom that you have for anyone who's thinking about quitting?
Well, I take it back to this quote that I said earlier. I had it up on my screen so long, and we had the whole show going. It was talking about an employee losing morale because of their employer. Well, as we talked about quite a bit during this show, you're the champion of your own career. So you are both employee and employer in that situation, if I may take that analogy that far. Is if you can't be happy in what you're doing, then you have to make a change, whether you need to go work out or take, as you were saying with the perplexity and the AI classes, I'm doing a bit of the same, Josh, expand your reach. You got to find your happiness. You got to find your anchor. So I probably ended up rambling here, but be the champion of your own career and, take responsibility. I think you would tend to agree with that one quite a bit.
Wonderful. Mr. Graber.
The old adage, get out in nature every once in a while. I think that's everyone who's talked about overcoming depression or things. I don't care how quick it is, 15, 20 minutes. Get outside, do something, find a park. I think that's good. Find a safe place to vent and realize everything is temporary.
Wonderful words. Thank you, Tom. Mr. LaQuire?
Yeah, I'll kind of sort of rehash some of the things we were talking about earlier. You're the captain of your own ship, but know what you want and find that out. If there's tension between you and your employer, your job, and you're feeling like you got to quit, step back, take a breather, go out in nature. I think is great advice. Reflect, figure out who you are, what you want, and whether it's the job, the employer that is the problem, or it's you. Before, as Josh suggested earlier, if there's something you need to shift in yourself, give it a try. The worst thing that can happen is you come back a month or 2 months down the road and decide you want to leave, or maybe you made the greatest decision of your life to stick around.
There you go. Thank you, Josh. Mr. Stein.
Call a long lost friend that you haven't connected with in many months or many years. That's always been a nice lifeline, right? Is just to reconnect with someone you've lost touch with that always kind of grounds you and reminisce about something that kind of takes your mind off things, to Tom's point, right? Just kind of helps you digress and rethink about something. And then just remember, your employer is really just a collection of people. It's just relationships. So just over-index and invest in the people and relationships, and just remember that those are people that are going to stay with you the rest of your career, and those relationships will carry through to the next job 5, 10, 20 years down the road. So just invest in those relationships and focus on the people. Don't worry so much about the employer, and take your time through it. So.
Gosh, you guys rock. You really do. I every time you guys are on the show, and Tom, for your first time on the show, it's like, you guys constantly remind me why you're here, because you are so intelligent, caring, and insightful, and generous with your time to be on the show. I'm going to share my final words before we head out here, and it's going to be quite simple, and it's this: you are stronger than you think you are. And by that I mean, you have the strength to look at what's challenging within yourself and what you need to work on with yourself and to do something about it. You can do it. You absolutely can do it. And it won't kill you. It won't break you, right? And it's better that you do that rather than have other people pointing it out, although help from the outside is always great. So really take good stock of where you are. What's your as is right now with you, your behaviors, your habits, and how you approach problems, how you approach others, how you help others or don't help others. But you're strong, so you can look at this. Turn the lens, turn the inner eye to see its path, as they say in Dune, right? And do something about it. And you will grow, and you're going to have a killer life, guys. Like, for real. Like, if someone just took all the advice that everybody just gave here and applied that to their work, you can't help but win. So go after it and be strong. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the show. We will be back 2 weeks from today on Wednesday at 5:30 Eastern and 2:30 Pacific. Your reviews actually help this show substantially. So please give us a thumbs up, drop a comment in, recommend to some friends. We are also on the lookout for a brand new co-host, a permanent co-host, because Vanessa is very busy with personal and work life. She's launched her own business and can't make the commitment to this show. We're looking for someone who is in the Salesforce ecosystem, is very insightful, has the energy and passion to help others, and is smart and willing to put themselves out there. We're out there in front of a lot of people when we do this show. So thanks, guys. Have a wonderful week, and don't quit before you investigate and think about stuff a little bit more. We hope this has been helpful. There will be a blog post coming out within the next 5 to 7 days. You can find that at the Salesforce, at the salesforcerecruiter.com. Just click insights and it's going to be right there. I'll probably post it on LinkedIn. If you're not following me on LinkedIn, I highly recommend you do so. It's /Joshua Matthews. And you can also follow Reid Marquand and Brandon Stein and Tom Graber. These are great people, very intelligent and good to connect with. Bye for now.
Bye, Josh.
Bye, y'all.
All right.